Welcome to Drowseworthy. Tonight, we are going to leave the noise, the rush, and the bright lights of the modern world far behind. We are going to travel across the vast, blue expanse of the Pacific Ocean to the most isolated archipelago on Earth. We are going back to a time before skyscrapers, before engines, before clocks, and before the relentless demand for our attention. We are going to the islands of Hawai'i. But this is not a story of warriors or battles. It is not a story of the fiery eruptions of Cloea or the high drama of kings and conquests. Instead, we are going to explore the quiet, steady, and hypnotic rhythm of daily life in ancient Hawaii. We will walk through the taro patches in the cool morning mist. We will listen to the rhythmic tapping of the kapa beaters echoing through the valley walls. We will sit by the ocean and watch the tide drift in and out, governed only by the pull of the moon. We will explore a society built on a profound connection to the lander world, where every rock, every stream, every cloud, and every wind had a name and a purpose. A world where the goal was not to conquer nature, but to breathe in unison with it. So, if you haven't already, this is the perfect time to dim the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan to mimic the trade winds. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Let your breathing slow down. Let's drift back to the year 1500. Imagine you are waking up. It is the hour before dawn, a time the Hawaiians called kapa, the darkness. But it is not a frightening darkness. It is a soft, velvety blanket that covers the island, heavy and comforting. The air inside your sleeping space is thick and humid, carrying the heavy scent of salt from the nearby ocean and the sweet, earthy smell of wet vegetation and damp soil. You are lying on a mat woven from lahala leaves. Feel the texture of it against your skin. The leaves of the pandanus trilong, spiny and tough, have been gathered from the coast. They have been dried in the sun until they turned a warm, golden beige. They have been stripped of their thorns, smoothed by hand, and woven into a tight, diagonal pattern. The mat is firm, supporting your back, yet flexible, breathing with the ambient temperature of the room. It has a distinct, grassy scent, like dried hay warmed by the sun. A smell that signifies rest and home. You are inside your hale, your house. It is a small, single-room structure, intimate and enclosed. The walls are not made of cold stone or brick, but of living things. The frame is constructed from the sturdy, dark wood of the Jaui'e tree, a wood so hard it turns the blades of tools. These posts were cut from the upland forests and brought down with great effort. They are lashed together not with nails, screws, or glue, but with braided cords made from coconut fiber. If you look up in the dim light, you can see the intricate lashings. The cordage is wrapped in complex, geometric knots patterns that are both functional and beautiful. The friction of the fiber holds the house together against the trade winds. The walls and roof are thatched with pili grass. This is a tall, native grass that grows on the dry leeward slopes. It has been dried to a golden brown and stacked thick, layer upon layer, to keep out the rain and the wind. The thatch is so thick that it muffles all sound from the outside world. And outside, a gentle rain is falling. It is a common sound, a soft, rhythmic pattering against the thatched roof. She, ... she, ... she. The sound creates a cocoon of silence, separating you from the vastness of the ocean outside. It is a lullaby that has been playing for centuries, a white noise that encourages deep, restorative sleep. You rise slowly. There is no rush. In this world, time is not measured by minutes or hours. It is measured by the position of the sun, the phase of the moon, and the turning of the tide. You stretch, your muscles waking up with the day. The air is cool, contrasting with the warmth of your sleeping kapa bark cloth blanket you push aside. You step out of the low doorway, stooping slightly. The ground beneath your feet is cool volcanic soil, packed hard and smooth by generations of footsteps. As you stand outside your hale, you can see the structure of your world emerging from the grey light of dawn. You live in an ahupua. This is the fundamental unit of Hawaiian life. It is a slice of the island, a wedge of land that runs from the mist-covered peaks of the mountains all the way down to the coral reefs of the sea. It is a self-sufficient universe. Everything you need to live: water, wood, stone, food, salties contained within this wedge. To leave the ahupua is rare. Everything you need is right here, arranged vertically from the clouds to the waves. You are a maka-janana, a person of the land. You are not a chief with heavy responsibilities of war or politics. You are a commoner, and your life is defined by the stewardship of this valley. Your hands are the hands that shape the earth. The sky is beginning to lighten now, turning a deep, bruised purple over the Pacific horizon. The stars are fading one by one. The birds are beginning to sink the apapane with its crimson feathers, and the iwai with its curved orange beak, calling out from the high canopy of the kea trees in the uplands. Their songs drift down the valley like a mist, signaling the start of the day's rhythm. Your first task of the day is not a chore, but a relationship. You must tend to the kalo, the taro. In the ancient Hawaiian worldview, the taro plant is not just a vegetable, it is an ancestor. It is the elder brother of the human race. And so, you treat it with the respect due to a family member. It is the center of gravity for your day, the heartbeat of the agricultural cycle. You walk up the valley, following the well-worn path along the stream. The air gets cooler as you ascend, leaving the salt spray behind and entering the zone of the rainforest. The light is greener here, filtered through the giant fronds of hapu ferns and the broad leaves of the breadfruit trees. You can smell the ginger and the damp moss. You reach the loos. These are the terraced pond fields where the taro grows. This is a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, though to you, it is simply how the world is shaped. It is a series of steps carved into the gentle slope of the land. Each step is a pond, surrounded by low walls built from river stones and packed mud. The walls are solid, covered in small ferns and mosses, holding the water in place. The water from the mountain stream is diverted into an oarway, an irrigation ditch lined with smooth stones. The water flows from the stream into the highest terrace, fills it to the perfect depth, and then overflows through a small gap in the wall into the next terrace below, and the next, until it returns to the stream further down. The water must always be moving. It must be cool. It must be clean. It carries the nutrients from the mountain down to the plants. If the water stands still, the taro will rot. If it runs too fast, it will wash the soil away. It must flow with a gentle, constant pressure. You step into the patch. The mud is deep, soft, and cool, rising up to your calves. It squelches softly as you move, a sound of suction and release. The water reflects the grey light of the morning sky, a mirror broken only by the stalks of the plants. Huge, heart-shaped leaves, green and glossy, rise up around your waist. Water droplets from the morning rain sit on the leaves like beads of mercury, shimmering and rolling as the wind touches them. The work is slow and meditative. You are not fighting the land, you are grooming it. You bend down to pull a weed that is competing with the taro. You press the mud back down around the base of the corm. You adjust a stone in the wall to ensure the flow of water is gentle, not rushing. There is a silence here that is profound. You do not speak while working in the lui. To shout or to chatter would be to break the concentration of the land. It is a form of moving meditation. You are part of the cycle. The water feeds the taro feeds you, and your labor maintains the water. This work continues for hours. The sun crests the ridges of the valley, warming your back. The mist burns off, revealing the stark, green majesty of the cliffs above you. Waterfalls, thin as silver ribbons, cascade down the vertical rock faces, thousands of feet high, disappearing into the canopy below. The sound of the falling water is a distant, constant hum, a white noise that underpins all life in the valley. The taro plant demands patience. It takes 9 to 12 months for a single plant to mature. 9 months of clean water, of sun, of weeding. You are working today for a meal that you will eat a year from now. This teaches you a long view of time. You plant the huli, the top of the stalk, back into the mud as you harvest, ensuring that the cycle never breaks. The circle remains unbroken. As the sun climbs higher, the heat begins to build. Hawaii is near the equator, and the sun is a physical weight on your shoulders. It is time to leave the lui. You wash the mud from your legs in the cool stream water. You walk back down the path toward the coast, carrying a bundle of harvested taro roots in a net bag woven from fibers. Life in the ahapua is governed by kapu. In the history books of the future, this system will often be described as a system of laws and punishments. But to you, living inside of it, kapu is something different. It is a system of sacredness. It is the rules that keep the spiritual and physical worlds in balance. It is about knowing your place and observing the boundaries. You do not walk on the chief's shadow, not just because it is forbidden, but because his mana, his spiritual power, is too intense. It is like standing too close to a fire. You keep your distance to maintain the order of things. There are rules for fishing, rules for planting, rules for eating, but these rules create a rhythm. They tell you when to rest the ocean so the fish can replenish. They tell you when to plant so the earth can recover. It is a system of conservation disguised as religion. It creates a predictable structure to the year, a calendar of what can be touched and what must be left alone. You arrive back at the village. It is a cluster of thatched houses near the shoreline, sheltered by a grove of coconut palms. The wind rustles the palm fronds are dry, clicking sound like falling rain. The middle of the day is for different work. In the shade of a cow tree, the women are gathering. They are making kapa. Listen to the sound. Tap, 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 tap. This is the heartbeat of the village. Kapa is the cloth made from the bark of the paper mulberry tree, the walk. There is no loom, no spinning wheel, no cotton gin. There is only the wood and the stone. Watch the process in your mind. It is slow, repetitive, and mesmerizing. A strip of bark is peeled from a thin sapling. It is soaked in seawater to soften the fibers, fermenting slightly until it is pliable. Then, it is laid out on a wooden anvil, a log of hard wood that has been smoothed and polished. The woman holds a bita, ai kuku, carved from heavy wood. It is square-sided with grooves carved into the faces. She strikes the wet bark. Tap. She strikes it again. Tap. With every blow, the fibers spread out. The strip of bark gets wider and thinner. She folds it over and beats it again. She adds another strip, beating them until they fuse together into a single sheet. The sound rings out across the village. Because the anvils are hollowed logs, they resonate like drums. Each woman has her own rhythm, her own signature beat. When many women are working together, the valley fills with a complex, syncopated percussion. It is the sound of industry, but a gentle one. It is the sound of community. The air smells of the fermenting bark sour, yeasty smell and the plant dyes used to color the cloth. Crushed berries for pink, turmeric root for yellow, charcoal and oil for black, red clay for ochre. They stamp patterns onto the cloth using bamboo stamps, geometric designs that tell stories of the waves, the mountains, and the stars. The finished cloth is soft, like felt. It is warm in the cool evenings and breathable in the hot days. It is used for everything: the mole loincloth for men, the po skirt for women, and the thick stacks of blankets for sleeping. While the women beat the kapa, you have other work. You sit in the shade, your back against the rough bark of a tree, and you work with cordage. Everything in this world is tied together. To build a house, a canoe, a tool, or a weapon, you need rope. You take the husk of a coconut, you pull apart the fibers, rolling them against your thigh. Your hand moves back and forth, twisting the fibers into a tight strand. Then you take two strands and twist them together in the opposite direction. The motion is automatic. Your hands know what to do without your eyes watching. Roll, twist, pull. Roll, twist, pull. The rope grows longer, coil by coil. It is rough and hairy, incredibly strong, smelling of the sea and the earth. You might be repairing a fishing net. The net is made of finer cord, perhaps from the alona plant, which is stronger than hemp and does not rot in salt water. You use a shuttle made of bone to tie the knots. Square knots, row after row, creating a mesh that will catch the reef fish. You are creating the tools of your survival, but there is no anxiety in it. The materials come from the land around you. The skill comes from your ancestors. As long as you follow the proper steps, the result is guaranteed. Now, let us consider the stone. The island is made of volcanic rock, basalt. It is born from fire, pouring out of the earth as red-hot liquid, cooling into black, porous stone. In your daily life, stone is your hammer, your knife, your lamp, and your god. To make a tool, you must hike to the quarries high on the slopes of Mauna Kea. The air there is thin and cold, often below freezing. The stone there is dense, blue-grey, free of the air bubbles found in the lowland lava. You find a stone that speaks to you. You sit with it. You begin to shape it. This is not a fast process. There is no metal to cut the stone. You must use another stone. Click, click, click. You chip away the flakes. You are making an adze, a koe. This is the tool that will fell the trees and carve the canoes. Hours turn into days. You chip the stone into a rough shape. Then begins the grinding. You rub the stone against a block of abrasive sandstone. Back and forth, back and forth. Water and sand are your lubricants. The sound is a low, scraping rhythm. Shikiara, shikiara. You polish the edge until it shines like glass, until it is sharp enough to shave the hair from your arm. This adze will be lashed to a wooden handle with the coconut cordage you twisted. It becomes an extension of your arm. When you swing it, it bites into the wood with a solid thunk. Think of the patience required to make such a tool. You cannot rush the stone. If you strike too hard, it will shatter and weeks of work will be lost. You must listen to the stone. You must work at the speed of the earth itself. The afternoon sun begins to dip. The harsh light softens, turning golden. The shadows of the palm trees stretch out long across the sand, reaching toward the ocean. It is time to look to the sea. The ocean is not a barrier to the Hawaiians. It is a highway and a pantry. It is as familiar as the land. You walk down to the water's edge. The sand is black here, ground down from the volcanic lava rock. It is warm under your feet, retaining the heat of the day. You see the fish ponds, the lokoaja. These are large, walled enclosures built out into the shallow reef. The walls are made of lava rock and coral, stacked without mortar. They are permeable. The water can flow through the cracks, allowing the tide to refresh the pond, but the walls hold the fish inside. There is a wooden gate, the kaha. It is a grate made of sturdy sticks lashed together. It allows small fish to enter the pond to feed, but once they grow fat and large, they cannot swim back out. It is a refrigerator that stocks itself. You walk out onto the wall of the fish pond. The rocks are slippery with moss and seaweed. You balance easily, your feet gripping the stone. On one side is the open ocean, the waves breaking gently against the outer wall. On the other side is the glassy, calm water of the pond. You can see the fish moving in the shadows. Mullet, milkfish. They flash silver in the late afternoon light. You do not need a hook or a spear today. You simply use a scoop net. You dip it into the water, moving slowly, waiting. You are still. You are like the heron standing on the rock. When the fish comes near, you lift. It is a simple harvest. A few fish for the evening meal. You do not take more than you need. There is no concept of hoarding, because the fish will spoil, and the pond will always be there tomorrow. Perhaps you also gather limeu, the seaweed that grows on the rocks. You pinch the tender branches, leaving the roots attached so it can grow back. Or you pry, the limpets, from the rocks where the waves crash, tasting the salt spray on your lips. As you walk back to the shore, you pause to look at the horizon. The vastness of the Pacific surrounds you. You are thousands of miles from the nearest continent. Yet, you do not feel isolated. You feel held. The ocean connects you to the other islands. Maui, Molokai, Oahu, visible as purple silhouettes in the distance. The sun is touching the water now. The sky explodes into color orange, violet, crimson. The clouds catch the fire of the setting sun. It is time for the evening meal. The village quietens. The tapping of the kapa beaters has stopped. The work in the fields is done. Families gather outside their houses, sitting on mats woven from grass. The center of the meal is poi. To make poi is another act of rhythm. The cooked taro roots are placed on a large wooden board, the papakuie. Using a heavy stone pestle, the pahakukuie, you pound the taro. Thud, thud, thud. You add water, you pound again. You knead the paste. It turns from a starchy root into a smooth, purple pudding. It is sticky and thick. It is the staple of life. To a Hawaiian, a meal without poi is not a meal. It is just a snack. The poi is served in a large wooden bowl, carved from the beautiful, dark wood of the cow or milo tree. The wood is polished until it shines, glowing in the firelight. The bowl is communal. Everyone eats from the same vessel. You dip your fingers into the poi, one finger, or two, depending on the thickness. You twirl your fingers to catch the paste and bring it to your mouth. It is cool, smooth, and slightly sour. It has a fermented temps, like yogurt, that feels clean and nourishing. You eat the fish you caught, perhaps wrapped in tea leaves and steamed, or perhaps raw, seasoned with sea salt and the lime you gathered. The salt is crunchy and sharp. The seaweed adds a snap of ocean flavor. You eat until you are full. There is a heaviness that comes with a belly full of poya, pleasant, grounding sedation. It is known as the poya coma. Your eyelids grow heavy. The physical labor of the datha mud, the sun, the walking, the pounding settles into your muscles as a satisfying ache. There is little conversation now. In ancient Hawaii, it is considered rude to talk business while eating. The act of eating is sacred. It is a communion with the god, Lono, the god of agriculture and peace. You eat in gratitude. The light fails completely. The torches are lit. These are made from kukui nuts. The nuts are oily and rich. They are skewered on a coconut midrib and lit. They burn with a golden, flickering flame, smelling slightly nutty and acrid. The village transforms in the darkness. The visible world shrinks to the circle of light cast by the torch. Beyond that circle, the world belongs to the spirits, to the Aumkua, the ancestral guardians. You might hear a story before sleep. An elder might recite a genealogy, chanting the names of ancestors going back generations. Born was the coral polyp. Born was the coral reef. Born was the grub that digs the earth. The chant is rhythmic, monotonous, in a soothing way, a drone that vibrates in your chest. It places you in a long line of existence, stretching back to the beginning of time. You are not alone. You are the latest link in an eternal chain. But soon, the voices hush. The torches are extinguished to save the oil. You crawl back into your hale. The interior is pitch black. You find your sleeping mat by touch. You lie down, pulling a kapa blanket over you. It smells of the bark and the sun. Outside, the rhythm of the island continues. The wind shifts, coming down from the mountains now, bringing the cool air of the high peaks. The palm trees rattle softly, and always, there is the sound of the ocean. Crash, ... hiss, ... hiss, ... hiss, ... hiss, ... It is the breathing of the world. You close your eyes. Your mind drifts over the day. The cool mud of the taro patch. The heat of the sun. The taste of the salt. The twist of the rope. The strike of the stone. You are safe. You are part of the ahupua. The land has fed you, and you have tended the land. The balance is kept. The kapu is observed. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again. The birds will sing. The water will flow through the terraces. And you will wake to do it all again. Sleep now in the embrace of the island. Rest in the deep, green valley. Rest by the deep, blue sea. Rest. The rise and fall of Kamehameha the First, the lonely one. Now, let us shift our gaze. We leave the quiet, muddy solitude of the taro patches. We leave the rhythmic tapping of the kapa beaters in the shaded groves. We leave the daily life of the common people, the Maka Yanana, whose lives were defined by the sun and the soil. We turn our eyes upward, toward the high peaks of the mountains and the vast, turning dome of the night sky. We turn our attention to the story of one man, a man whose ambition would reshape the map of the Pacific, a man born under a prophecy who would unite a fractured archipelago through warfare, strategy, and an iron will that never bent. This is the story of Kamehameha. At birth, he was called Paiye. It is a name that means hard-shelled crab. It is a name that speaks of armor, of a creature that carries its protection on the outside, shielding a soft interior. Later, he would be known as Kamehameha, the lonely one, or the one set apart. His story begins not with a battle, but with a light in the sky. The year is 1758. Of course, no Hawaiian counts years in this way. To them, it is the time of the comet. Imagine the night sky over the Kahala district on the northern tip of the big island of Hawaii. The air here is clear and cold, swept clean by the trade winds rushing over the channel. There are no city lights to dim the stars. The Milky Way is a river of diamond dust stretching from horizon to horizon, so bright it casts a shadow. And cutting through this familiar tapestry is a strange sight. Halley's Comet. It blazes across the darkness like a wound in the heavens, a streak of white fire trailing a tail of cosmic dust. The kahuna, the priests and seers who watch the sky for signs, look up. They interpret this omen with a mixture of dread and excitement. The comet is a herald. A chief is about to be born, they declare. A chief who will be a killer of chiefs, a uniter of islands. A man whose mana, his spiritual power, will be so intense that he will overturn the old order entirely. When his mother, the high chiefess, Keku Aiapoia II, goes into labor that night, the atmosphere is tense with fear. She is hidden away in a secret location, sheltered from the prying eyes of rival chiefs. The other Alai, the rulers of the districts, are terrified. If this child lives, their world will change. And so, even before the infant takes his first breath, there are those plotting his death. The baby is born healthy and strong, but there is no time for celebration. No time for the mother to hold him and rest. Attendants spirit the child away into the night. They wrap him in soft kapa cloth and run into the darkness under the light of the comet. They take him to a remote valley, far from the centers of power. They give him to a trusted retainer to raise in secret. For the first 5 years of his life, Pai'ia lives in hiding. He is raised in the Waipio Valley, or perhaps the deep forests of Kohala. He is raised by people who know that if his identity is discovered, assassins will come. And the stories say they did come. There are tales of attempts to poison him, attempts to ambush the small group protecting him. Each time, the child survives. He grows strong in the wilderness. He learns to walk on the sharp lava rock without cutting his feet. He learns to swim in the rough ocean channels, holding his breath as the waves crash over him. While other Alie children are being raised in the comfort of the court, learning manners and genealogies, Pai'ia is learning how to endure. The men who protect him during these early years become more than guardians. They become his first family. They become his first warband. They teach him lua, the Hawaiian martial art. Lua is not just fighting. It is a discipline of the body and the mind. It is the knowledge of bone breaking, of joint locking, of using the body as a weapon. But they also teach him the psychology of combat. They teach him the importance of loyalty. They teach him that a leader must be harder than the stone, yet fluid like the water. They tell him stories of his ancestors, of his descent from the god, Lono. They ensure he understands that he is not merely surviving, he is preparing. Everything he endures in these early years is training for a destiny he cannot yet see. When he is finally old enough to be presented at court, revealed as the nephew of Kalani Jipuyu, the paramount chief of the island. The boy has already developed the hardness his name suggests. He is not like the other young chiefs. He is fierce, physical, uncompromising. He stands well over 6 feet tall. His frame is powerfully built, fed on the rich diet of the Elahi, pork, fish, and taro. His face is striking. European visitors will later describe it as both noble and intimidating. His eyes, they note, seem to look right through you, assessing your usefulness or your threat in an instant. He does not waste words. He does not engage in the flowery rhetoric of the court. When he speaks, it is with purpose, and people listen. He becomes known for his immense physical strength. There is a legend of the Naha Stona, massive volcanic boulder in Hilo. It weighs nearly 3 tons. The prophecy said that whoever could overturn this stone would conquer all the islands. Imagine the scene, the young chief surrounded by the court, the silence as he approaches the stone. He grips the rough, cool rock. He grounds his feet in the earth. He strains his muscles, channeling all his mana into a single moment of effort. And slowly, heavily, the stone turns. But destiny and reality are not the same thing. Young Kamehameha finds himself in a precarious position. He is of high rank, but he is not the highest. His uncle has a son, Kualaho, who is the designated heir. Kamehameha is powerful, respected, even feared, but he is not the chosen one. He is the lonely one, set apart, always watching from the outside, waiting. During these years of waiting, he learns another kind of warfare, politics. He learns to read the shifting alliances of the court. He learns who can be trusted and who cannot. He builds his own network of loyalty. He rewards those who serve him well. He betrays betrayal with swift, cold violence. He studies the traditional arts of Hawaiian governance. He learns the complex system of land division. He learns the rituals that keep the gods pleased. He becomes as skilled in the council house as he is on the battlefield. And then, in 1779, the world changes forever. It begins with a sail on the horizon. Huge, white clouds of canvas billowing above hulls of wood and iron. The British explorer James Cook arrives in Hawaiian waters. His ships, the Resolution and the Discovery, anchor in Kilashikua Bay. Kamehameha is there. He sees the strange, tall ships. He boards the vessels. He touches the iron nails. He feels the cold, hard metal, a material unknown in the islands, stronger than stone, sharper than bone. He sees the tools, knives that do not break, axes that cut wood like butter. He sees for the first time what the outside world has to offer. He is there when tensions escalate. He is there on the beach when Cook is killed. But more important than the death of the explorer is the realization that comes with it. Kamehameha understands immediately that the world has gotten larger. He understands that whoever controls these foreign weapons, the iron, the muskets, the cannons, will control the islands. He begins to cultivate relationships with the foreign sailors who visit. He trades food and water for nails and metal. He learns snippets of their language. He studies their technology. He is a man with a foot in 2 worlds. One foot is planted firmly in the ancient traditions of his ancestors. The other is stepping tentatively into the future. In 1782, the waiting ends. His uncle, the paramount chief, dies. The succession crisis begins. The kingdom is divided. His cousin, Kuala'o, becomes the ruler. But Kamehameha is given a special role. He is given custody of the war god, Keike Ilamoku. This god, Cool, is a terrifying figure. His image is carved from wood, with a mouth full of dog's teeth and staring eyes made of pearl. He demands sacrifice. He demands victory. By giving Kamehameha the war god, the dying chief has set the stage for conflict. He is given the political power to one son and the spiritual power of war to the other. It is a recipe for civil war, and everyone knows it. The fighting begins almost immediately. The Battle of Mukuhai. It is brief but decisive. Kamehameha's forces, better trained and more ruthless, defeat his cousin. Kualahoi is killed. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning of a decade of constant warfare. Kamehameha fights to consolidate control of the Big Island. The fighting is brutal. Villages are burned. Captives are sacrificed to Ku. The Kapu system, the sacred loas, enforced with severity. Kamehameha is demonstrating his divine mandate, but he is also innovating. He realizes that traditional war for spears, clubs, sling stones is changing. He trades with the foreigners for muskets. He trades for cannons. He takes 2 foreign sailors into his service, John Young and Isaac Davis. These men become his advisors. They are not captives. They are elevated to the rank of chiefs. They marry Hawaiian women. They teach Kamehameha's warriors how to aim a musket, how to load a cannon, how to maintain the iron weapons in the salty air. John Young and Isaac Davis are living bridges between the cultures. Kamehameha listens to them. He respects their knowledge. He integrates them into his court, proving his adaptability. In 1790, Kamehameha faces his greatest challenge, Kahekili, the king of Maui. Kahekili is a formidable enemy. He is older, experienced, and rules over multiple islands. His nickname is the Thunderer. He is tattooed from head to toe, half of his body entirely black. He is a living legend, everything Kamehameha aspires to be. Kamehameha launches an invasion of Maui. He brings his cannons. He brings his fleet of war, canoes hundreds of them, darkening the channel between the islands. The battle takes place in the Aau Valley. It is a narrow, steep-walled canyon, lush and green, dominated by the Aau Needle, a rock formation rising 1,200 feet from the valley floor. Kamehameha's forces push the Maui warriors back into the valley. The sound of the cannons echoes off the cliffs. The muskets crack like thunder, a sound never before heard in this sacred place. The Maui warriors, armed only with spears and courage, are trapped. The battle is a victory, but a costly one. And even in victory, there is a setback. While Kamehameha is fighting on Maui, a rival chief named Kua raids his home territory on the Big Island. Kamehameha is forced to return. It is a painful lesson in the limitations of power. You cannot be in 2 places at once. He returns to find his lands ravaged. He immediately sets out to pursue Kua. And then, something happens that no one could have predicted. As Kua's army is marching across the slopes of Klauia volcano, the mountain explodes. It is a rare, explosive eruption. A cloud of superheated gas and Asher pyroclastic flow surges down the mountain. It moves faster than a hurricane. It is silent and deadly. It catches a portion of Kauai's army. Hundreds of warriors are killed instantly. Some are choked by the sulfur gas. Others are incinerated by the heat. They fall where they stand. Today, if you walk the trails of the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, you can still see their footprints, preserved in the hardened ash. Footprints of men, women, and children marching in formation, frozen in time. It is a haunting memorial to a lost army. To the Hawaiian people of the time, the meaning is clear. Pa'el, the goddess of the volcano, has chosen a side. She is fighting for Kamehameha. The gods are with him. Kua's support crumbles. But Kamehameha does not leave things to divine intervention alone. He begins a massive construction project. He orders the building of a great heiau, a temple, at Puyukohold. It is dedicated to his war god, Ku. The construction is an epic feat of logistics. Thousands of workers form a human chain, stretching 25 miles. They pass the heavy lava rocks hand to hand, from the valley to the hill. It is a river of stone, moving by human muscle. Imagine the sound, the clatter of rocks, the chanting of the workers, the heat of the sun. Kamehameha himself is said to have worked on the temple, carrying stones alongside his people, demonstrating his strength and his devotion. When the temple is finished in 1791, Kamehameha invites his rival, Kua, to the dedication ceremony. He offers to negotiate peace. Kua comes. Perhaps he knows it is a trap. Perhaps he knows he has no choice. His army is destroyed by the volcano. His allies have left him. He sails into the bay below the massive stone walls of the temple. As he steps onto the shore, he is killed. Some accounts say he was ambushed. Others say he came willingly to his death, knowing it was the only way to end the war. His body is carried up the hill and offered to the god Ku. With the death of his rival, Kamehameha finally controls all of the island of Hawaii. But he is not satisfied. His ambition has always been larger. He wants what no Hawaiian chief has ever achieved: control of all the islands. In 1795, Kamehameha launches his most ambitious campaign yet. He assembles a massive fleet, the largest invasion force ever gathered in Hawaiian history. Hundreds of war canoes, their sails painted in traditional patterns, thousands of warriors, and critically, the European cannons and firearms. The fleet crosses the rough channels between the islands. They land first on Maui, then Molokai, then Lanai. The opposition crumbles. Chiefs who might have resisted instead submit, recognizing that Kamehameha is unstoppable. The final confrontation comes on Oahu, the Battle of New Uenu. The forces of the King of Oahu make their stand in the New Uenu Valley. It is a verdant passage leading through the Keolau Mountains. Kamehameha's army advances. They are a disciplined machine. The foreign cannons blast holes in the defensive lines. The muskets rain fire. The Oahu warriors are pushed back, step by step, mile by mile. They retreat up the valley, toward the cliffs. They reach the new Uanu Poli. This is a place of terrifying beauty. The cliffs drop away nearly 1,000 feet, straight down to the windward coast below. The wind here is always howling, rushing up the face of the rock. There is nowhere left to go. The battle ends in tragedy. Warriors are pushed over the edge. Others jump rather than be captured. The silence that follows the battle is broken only by the wind whistling through the peaks. Kamehameha now controls all the major islands except one, Kauai. He attempts to invade twice, but the ocean protects Kauai. Storms scatter his fleet. Epidemics strike his army. It seems the gods will not permit him to take the last island by force. Finally, in 1810, diplomacy succeeds where war failed. The king of Kauai agrees to cede the island peacefully, recognizing Kamehameha as his overlord. It is done. After nearly 30 years of warfare, political maneuvering, and ruthless determination, Kamehameha has achieved the impossible. All the Hawaiian Islands are united under a single ruler. The prophecy spoken at his birth has come to pass. He is the killer of chiefs, the uniter of islands. But what does this unified kingdom look like? For the average Hawaiian, life does not change dramatically. They still tend to taro. They still fish the reefs. They still prostrate themselves when a chief walks by. But there is one profound difference. The warfare has stopped. For the first time in living memory, there is peace. The villagers are not burned. The young men are not called away to die in battle. The population begins to stabilize. Kamehameha establishes his capital at Kailua on the Kona coast. He builds a compound befitting his status. He governs with a mix of traditional strictness and new ideas. His most famous legacy is a law known as Kawai Magmalaho, the law of the splintered paddle. It is born from a memory of his youth. Once, while raiding a fishing village, Kamehameha's foot got stuck in the reef. A fisherman, protecting his family, hit the trapped chief over the head with a paddle, shattering the wood. Kamehameha could have had the man killed, but years later, as king, he remembered that moment. He realized the fisherman was right to protect his family. He issued a decree: let every elderly person, woman, and child lie by the roadside in safety. It was a guarantee of safety for non-combatants. It was revolutionary. In a society defined by war, the king was declaring that the weak must be protected from the strong. It remains a symbol of human rights in Hawaii to this day. But for all his achievements, Kamehameha remains the lonely one. He has outlived most of his rivals. Many of his old companions, the men who taught him in the forest, are dead. He has many wives and many children, but he is distant. He trusts no one fully. In his later years, he becomes obsessed with maintaining what he has built. He is strict about the kapu. He worries about the gods. He worries about the foreigners. He sees the changes coming. He sees the ships arriving more frequently. He sees the whiskey and the diseases. He sees the new ideas chipping away at the old world. He tries to hold back the tide. He tries to preserve the Hawaiian way of life, even as he uses Western tools to defend it. In 1819, Kamehameha dies at his compound in Kailua. He is an old man. He has lived a life of incredible scope. He has gone from a child hiding in a cave to the king of the Pacific. His body is prepared according to the ancient rituals. The flesh is removed. The bones, the source of his mana, cleaned and wrapped in kapa cloth. His most trusted advisor takes the bones. He travels into the night to a secret location along the Kona coast. Perhaps a lava tube hidden in a cliff. Perhaps a cave submerged by the tide. He hides the bones. To this day, despite centuries of searching, no one has ever found the bones of Kamehameha. He wanted it this way. He wanted his power preserved. He wanted to protect his legacy from those who might desecrate it. Even in death, he remains apart, hidden, protected, lonely. Within a year of his death, the world he fought to preserve collapses. His son abolishes the kapu system. The temples are destroyed. The missionaries arrive. The old gods are abandoned. The independent nation he built survives him by less than a century. In 1893, the monarchy is overthrown. In 1898, the islands are annexed by the United States. But the spirit of Kamehameha remains. He is remembered not just as a warrior, but as a visionary. a man who navigated the most dangerous period of Hawaiian history with intelligence and dignity. His statue stands today in front of the palace in Honolulu. He is cast in bronze and gold. He wears the royal feather cloak and helmet. His arm is outstretched, pointing toward the future. As we leave his story now, picture him standing on the black lava rocks of the Kona coast, the old king, looking out at the ocean he conquered, listening to the waves. The battles are over. The cannons are silent. The shouting has faded. There is only the wind, the sea, and the memory of the man who united the islands, the lonely one. Rest now in the silence of his story. The history is written. The night is deep, and the islands sleep in peace. The mystery of the Menehune, ancient builders or myth. We move now from the life of kings and commoners, from the sunlit taro patches and the battlefields of history, to something quieter, something older. We step into the space between history and legend, between the hard facts of archaeology and the soft whispers of folklore, between what we can touch and what we can only wonder about. This is the story of the Menehune. If you have spent any time in Hawaii, you have likely heard this name. It appears in children's books, in tourist brochures, in the stories locals tell their grandchildren. The Menehune are described as the little people of ancient Hawaii. They are said to be small, muscular, perhaps 2 to 3 feet tall. They lived in the deep forests and the high mountains, long before the arrival of the Polynesian settlers who would become the Hawaiian people. They are the master builders, the engineers of the impossible. The legends say they worked only at night. As the sun set, they would emerge from the shadows of the forest, thousands of them. They would form human chains, passing stones hand to hand over miles of rough terrain. They would build fish ponds, temples, ditches, and roads. But they had a strict rule. The work must be finished in a single night. If the rooster crowed and the sun began to rise before the last stone was placed, they would abandon the project forever. They would vanish back into the mountains, leaving their work unfinished. It is a charming story, whimsical even. It feels like the kind of folklore every culture possesses. Ireland has its leprechauns. Scandinavia has its dwarves. Iceland has its hidden folk. It would be easy to dismiss the Menehune as nothing more than Hawaiian fairy tale, these pleasant fictions invented to explain the unknown. But then, you visit a place like the Alakoko fish pond on the island of Kauai, and the story becomes more complicated. Let us go there now in our imagination. The Alakoko fish pond, often called the Menehune fish pondies, located near Nulawili Bay. It is a quiet, serene place. The water is still, reflecting the green hills that surround it. But look at the wall that separates the pond from the river. It is an impressive structure by any measure. A stone wall, nearly 900 feet long, 5 feet high, and constructed from carefully fitted lava rock. It stretches across a bend in the Hawai'i River, creating an enclosed sanctuary for fish. The wall is not just a pile of rocks. It is a feat of engineering. The stones are basalt volcanic rock that is incredibly hard and difficult to shape. Yet here they are cut and fitted. Some weigh hundreds of pounds. They are arranged in a specific way to allow water to flow through the gaps, refreshing the pond with the tide, while keeping the fish contained. The bottom of the wall is wider than the top, a technique used by modern engineers to provide stability against the pressure of the water. It has stood for centuries. It has survived floods, hurricanes, and tidal waves. Who built it? The legend says the Menehune built it in a single night. They stood in a line 25 miles long, passing stones from the Makaweli Valley all the way to the river. But archaeology tells us something else. Radiocarbon dating suggests this structure is at least 1,000 years old, possibly older. It is real. You can touch the stones. Someone built this. Someone with significant knowledge of hydrology. Someone who could organize a workforce, quarry stone, transport it, and assemble it with precision. Modern engineers estimate that building this wall would have required hundreds of workers laboring for months, perhaps years. It would have required a support system, food, water, shelter. It was a major civic project, and yet the oral tradition insists they did it in one night, and then they disappeared. Why would such a story develop around a massive, long-term construction project? Why would a culture attribute its greatest engineering feats to a vanished race of small people? This is where the mystery deepens. The mainstream archaeological explanation is straightforward. The fish pond was built by the ancestors of the Hawaiian people. It was built using communal labor, organized by the chiefs. Over time, as generations passed, the specific details of the construction were forgotten. The memory of the commoners who did the back-breaking work, the Menehune, evolved into a myth. But let us look closer at the word itself. Menehune. In the Tahitian language, the word Menehune refers to the common people, the laborers, the lower class. In other Polynesian languages, similar words exist, always referring to people of lower social status, often those who live inland, away from the coast. Could the Menehune of legend be a cultural memory of a real class of people? Perhaps the first wave of settlers who arrived in Hawaii centuries before the second wave? Imagine the scenario. A group of Polynesians arrives in Hawaii around 300 or 400 AD. They settle the islands. They build fish ponds. They build temples. They live there for 500 years. Then, around 1000 AD, a new wave of migration arrives from Tahiti. These new settlers are larger, more aggressive, carrying a more rigid social structure. They conquer the original inhabitants. They push them inland, into the forests and the mountains. The original people become the Menehune, the commoners, the people of the land. Over centuries, they become physically smaller due to isolation and diet. Or perhaps they were smaller to begin with. They become the little people of the forest, the builders, the ones who were here first. There is tantalizing evidence for this. In 1820, a census conducted on the island of Kauai listed 65 people identified as Menehune. They were living in the remote Wainea Valley. The census takers did not record them as mythological beings. They recorded them as actual residents. 65 people, a distinct group. What happened to them? Were they the last remnants of an ancient population? Or were they simply a group of Hawaiians living in isolation who had been labeled with the old name? The census gives no details. It does not say if they were short. It does not say if they spoke a different dialect. By the time anthropologists thought to ask these questions, those 65 people were gone, absorbed into the general population, or passed away, taking their secrets with them. There are other structures, too. The Kaikeoela, the Menehune ditch, on Kauai. It is an irrigation channel built with dressed stone. The blocks of basalt are cut and polished. They are fitted together so tightly that you cannot slide a knife blade between them. This kind of stonework cut and dressed stone is extremely rare in traditional Hawaiian architecture, which usually relied on natural, uncut stones. The technique looks different. It looks ... older. Or perhaps from somewhere else. Some researchers have noted similarities between the stonework of the Menehune ditch and the stonework found on distant islands like the Marquesas or Rapa Nui Easter Island. Could it be a remnant of a lost technology? A style of building that was brought by the earliest settlers and then forgotten? Cultures do lose knowledge. The Romans knew how to make concrete that could set underwater. When the empire fell, that recipe was lost for 1,000 years. The Polynesians were the greatest navigators the world has ever seen, crossing thousands of miles of open ocean. Yet, in some island groups, that knowledge faded over time as they settled and stopped voyaging. Perhaps the early Hawaiians possessed masonry skills that were not passed down. The structures remained silent and perfect, and later generations looked at them and said, "We could not have built this. It must have been the Menehune." There is another possibility, one that drifts into the realm of biology. Is it possible that a population of humans, living in isolation on an island, could physically evolve to be smaller? We know it happens in animals. Elephants trapped on islands evolved into dwarf elephants, and we know it has happened in humans. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, archaeologists discovered the remains of Homo floresiensis, a species of early human that stood only 3.5 feet tall. They lived there until relatively recently, perhaps overlapping with modern humans. They are nicknamed hobbits. Could something similar have happened in the deep history of the Pacific? It is unlikely in the short time frame of Hawaiian settlement, less than 2,000 years. Evolution usually takes longer, but genetics is complex. Perhaps the founding population of the Menehune came from a stock of people who were naturally shorter. Perhaps diet and environment played a role, or perhaps the smallness is a metaphor. In many cultures, the people of the past are remembered as giants, but in Hawaii, the people of the past are remembered as small. Why? Maybe it is a way of saying they were lesser in power, but greater in skill. They were the commoners, the workers, the ones who did the heavy lifting. The legends emphasized their strength. A Menehune could carry a stone that 3 normal men could not lift. They were small, but mighty. Let us return to the stories themselves. They are consistent, remarkably so. On Kauai, on Oahu, on Molokai, the stories are always the same. Small people, nocturnal, master builders, shrimpers. They love shrimp. In almost every story, the Menehune demand payment in Ope freshwater shrimp, but they are picky. Each shrimp must be perfect. If you try to cheat them, they will leave. This detailed demand for fair payment sounds less like a fairy tale and more like a labor agreement. It sounds like a memory of a workforce that had specific terms. We will build your wall, but you must feed us. Imagine the scene. The chief wants a fish pond. He gathers the people of the deep, valleys the people who know the stone, who know the river. He strikes a bargain. They work at night to avoid the heat of the sun. They work fast, coordinated, a disciplined army of laborers. To the people watching from the coast, it would seem like magic. In the evening, there is nothing but a river. In the morning, there is a war. The Menehune did it, they would whisper. Over time, the reality fades. The sweat, the shrimp, the negotiations, they are forgotten. Only the magic remains. And what of Necker Island? This is a tiny, rocky spine of an island, 400 miles northwest of the main Hawaiian chain. It is uninhabited, barren, harsh. But when archaeologists landed there, they found something startling. The island is covered in stone platforms, temples, heiau. There are 33 of them on this tiny speck of land. They are different from the temples on the main islands. They are upright stones, arranged in rows. They look like the Maori of Tahiti, or the structures of the ancestral Polynesian homelands. Who built them? Radiocarbon dating suggests people were there as early as 800 AD. They lived there. They worshipped there. On a rock with almost no water, almost no soil. Were these the Menehune? Were they a group of exiles? Or were they the first settlers, pushing as far north as they could go, before retreating back to the richer, larger islands? The stones on Necker Island stand silent against the wind. They are the Stonehenge of the Pacific, a mystery that has no written answer. So, where does that leave us? Are the Menehune myth or memory? Perhaps they are both. Human history is rarely simple. It is a layering of stories. One people arrives, another people arrives. They mix, they fight, they merge. The stories of the old ones get woven into the stories of the new ones. The gods of the defeated become the demons, or the helpers of the victors. The Menehune represent the other, the people who were here before, the people who knew the land more intimately than we do. They remind us that we are walking on layers of history. Every time you step on a stone path in Hawaii, you might be stepping on the work of hands that have been forgotten. There is a humility in the Menehune legends. They remind the powerful chiefs that they did not build the island alone. The great works, the fish ponds that feed the people, the ditches that water the taro were built by the little people, by the collective, by the unseen workers in the night. It is a message. Do not forget who holds up the world. And there is something else, a sense of wonder. In a world that we have mapped and measured, where we have satellites and GPS, it is comforting to think that there are still mysteries, that there might still be something hidden in the deep valleys. Even today, in Hawaii, you will hear people say, the Menehune took it. When keys go missing, when a tool vanishes and reappears in a strange place. It is said with a smile, but also with a nod of respect. On quiet nights, when the moon is hidden by clouds and the trade winds die down, if you listen carefully in the remote valleys of Kauai, you might hear it. The sound of a splash in the river, the clatter of a stone being moved, the murmur of many voices working together. Maybe it is just the wind in the bamboo. Maybe it is the water rushing over the rocks. Or maybe, just maybe, the work continues. The stones are still there. The fish pond still holds the tide. The ditch still carries the water. They remain patient and silent. Monuments to human ingenuity. Monuments to the people of the mist. Whether they were 3 feet tall or 6 feet tall doesn't really matter. What matters is what they left behind. A legacy of balance, of engineering that worked with nature, not against it. So, let us leave them to their work. Let us leave the mystery unsolved. The night is deep, the forest is dark, and the Menehune are watching. Now, let us pull back further. We have walked the land. We have looked at the sky. We have wondered at the mysteries. As the night deepens, let us think about the materials of this world again. The texture of existence in ancient Hawaii. Think of the kukui nut, the candlenut tree. Its leaves are pale green, almost silver, visible from miles away on the mountain slopes. The nut itself is round, hard, and black. Inside, the kernel is rich in oil. In the old days, this was the light. Imagine the process of making light. You gather the nuts, you roast them, you crack the hard shell, you thread the kernels onto a spine made from the midrib of a coconut frond. When you light the top nut, It burns for exactly a few minutes before lighting the next one below it. It is a clock made of fire. The smell of the burning nut is oily, nutty, distinct. It is the smell of the evening. The soot from the burned nuts is collected. It is mixed with oil to make black ink for tattoos. Keikau. The tattoo is not just decoration, it is armor. It is genealogy written on the skin. The geometric pattern strangles, lines, shark teeth wrap around the legs, the arms, the torso. The tapping of the tattoo tomolias, another rhythm of the village. Tap, tap, tap. A different sound than the kapa beater. Sharper, faster. The ink goes into the skin. The mana goes into the blood. Think of the Alona plant. It grows in the wet rainforests. It is a shrub with strong, fibrous bark. This fiber is the strongest natural fiber in the world. Stronger than hemp. Stronger than silk. It was used to make the nets. It was used to make the fishing lines. It was used to make the base for the feather cloaks of the kings. Imagine the work of harvesting Alona. You must hike into the deep, wet forest. You strip the bark. You scrape it with a shell or a piece of turtle bone to remove the pulp. You are left with ribbons of pure white fiber. You twist it on your thigh. Hours of twisting, miles of cordage. This cordage does not rot in salt water. It lasts for generations. A net made of Alona is a family heirloom. It is passed down from father to son. This is the net that caught the grey shark. This is the net that fed our village. Everything has a story. Everything is connected. The land is not an object. It is a subject. It is alive. The rocks are alive. They grow. They give birth. The mist is alive. It is the breath of the mountains. The rain is alive. It has names. The Tuahine rain of Manoa, the Lelkalewa rain of Palolo. The Hawaiians had hundreds of names for rain. Rain that slants, rain that mists, rain that stings, rain that brings the fish. To live in this world is to be constantly in conversation with the elements. You are never lonely because the world is speaking to you. The wind speaks. The birds speak. The ocean speaks. As you lie in your bed tonight, miles away from these islands, try to listen to that conversation. Imagine the sound of the trade winds rushing through the palm fronds, a dry, rattling hiss. Imagine the sound of the surf pounding on the lava cliffs, a deep, resonant bass note that vibrates in your chest. Imagine the smell of the plumeria flower, sweet, creamy, heavy in the humid air. Imagine the coolness of the stream water on your feet. You are drifting, you are floating, like a canoe on a calm sea. The outrigger balances you. The swells lift you up and set you down, gentle, rhythmic. There is nothing to do, there is nowhere to go. The kapu is lifted, the work is done. The taro is planted, the fish are caught, the kapa is beaten. The comet has passed, the kings have fallen, the walls are built. All that remains is the peace of the island, the deep green peace of the valley, the deep blue peace of the ocean. Sleep now, sleep in the shadow of the mountain. Sleep in the shelter of the bay. Sleep, life among the Alai, the sacred chiefs of ancient Hawaii. We have walked through the taro patches of the commoners, feeling the cool mud between our toes. We have looked up at the night sky over the battlefields of Kamehameha. We have wandered into the deep forests to wonder at the Menehune walls. Now, as the night deepens, let us step into a world the most Hawaiians could never enter. A world of silence, of ritual, and of power so absolute it was considered divine. This is the world of the Ali'i, the sacred chiefs. Imagine being born into this world. Your birth is not a private family matter. It is a cosmic event. When you take your first breath, the drums sound across the island. Boom, boom, boom. The deep, resonant notes travel over the valleys and the water. Conch shells are blown from the hilltops, a mournful, hollow sound that echoes against the cliffs. Priests, the kahuna, stand outside the birthing hut. They begin to chant. They do not chant your name, for you do not have one yet. They chant your genealogy. They trace the line of your blood back through the centuries, back past the great kings, back past the voyagers who crossed the ocean, back to the gods themselves, to Dakia, the Sky Father, to Papa, the Earth Mother. You are not merely a child. You are a living connection between the earth and the sky. From the moment you enter the world, you are kapu, sacred, dangerous. In the ancient Hawaiian worldview, monospiritual power is not a metaphor. It is real. It is like electricity. It flows through the universe, accumulating in certain places and certain people. You, the High Chief, are a battery of this energy. Your mana is so concentrated that it radiates from you. To a common person, your mana is dangerous. If they come too close without the proper protection, it could harm them. It could burn them spiritually. So, your life is a life of containment. You are surrounded by rules, not to punish you, but to protect the world from you. You are taken immediately from your mother. You are given to a kahu, a guardian. This is a person of high rank, chosen for their wisdom and their loyalty. They will raise you. They will be your shadow. Your childhood is not a time of play. It is a time of training. You do not run wild through the village. You do not swim unsupervised in the lagoon. Every movement is watched. Every interaction is monitored. You spend your days memorizing the oli, the chants. The Hawaiians had no written language. Their history, their science, their laws, everything was stored in the memory. You must become a living library. You sit in the shade of a cow tree, listening to the elders. You repeat the words, over and over again, thousands of lines, the names of the stars, the names of the winds, the genealogy of every chief on every island. You must be perfect. A mistake in a chant is not just an error. It is a break in the spiritual circuit. It could invalidate a ceremony. It could anger the gods. So you practice until the words are etched into your bones. But you are also learning the land. You learn to read the omens. You watch the flight of the iba bird. You watch the way the clouds gather on the peaks of the mountains. You learn to predict the weather by the feel of the wind on your skin. You are being prepared to govern. And in Hawaii, governance is not just about politics. It is about maintaining the balance of the universe. You are the pivot point. If you are righteous, the rain falls and the taro grows. If you are unrighteous, the land dries up. The weight of the world is already on your small shoulders. As you grow, the restrictions tighten. If you are of the highest ranker, Neopio Chifa, rules are severe. The kapumo, the prostration kapu. This means that when you walk, the world must fall down. Imagine walking through a village. As you approach, a herald blows a conch shell, or perhaps a specialized crier runs ahead, shouting kapumo. Instantly, activity stops. The pounding of the poi ceases. The conversation ends. Every one man, women, children, throws themselves face down on the earth. They press their foreheads into the dust. They cannot look at you. They cannot speak. They must remain motionless until you have passed. Why? Because your shadow is dangerous. If your shadow falls across a commoner, their manner is eclipsed by yours. It is a spiritual violation. The punishment is death, not because you are cruel, but because the balance has been broken. The only way to restore the balance is sacrifice. So you walk in a bubble of silence. You walk alone, even when you are surrounded by people. You are isolated by your own power. Your home is a complex of buildings, separated by function. There is the imha, the men's eating house. Here, you dine with other male chiefs. You eat pork, bananas, coconuts, red fish foods that are full of manna. Across the courtyard is the house for the women. They eat separately. The kapu forbids men and women from eating together. It forbids women from eating the sacred foods. This separation is absolute. There is a sleeping house, a house for drums, a house for the gods. Everything has its place. Everything has its ritual. But despite the restrictions, your life is one of immense beauty. Let us look at the objects that surround you. The material culture of the Alii. Consider the ehula, the feather cloak. It is perhaps the most spectacular garment ever created by human hands. Imagine a cloak made of netting, woven from the strongest alona fibers. Attached to this netting are feathers, thousands upon thousands of them. Yellow feathers from the oar bird, red feathers from the iwai bird. These birds are small, forest dwellers. The owl is mostly black, with only a few yellow feathers under its wings. To make a single cloak, bird catchers would have to trap thousands of birds. They would pluck the few yellow feathers and release the bird unharmed. It would take decades to collect enough feathers for a great cloak. Generations of bird catchers, working in the high rainforests, listening for the call of the birds. When you wear this cloak, you are wearing the work of 1,000 hands. You are wearing the concentrated essence of the forest. The yellow feathers shine like gold in the sun. The red feathers glow like fresh blood or fire. You wear a mahio, a feathered helmet. It is crested, like a Greek helmet, but made of woven basketry covered in feathers. It adds height and majesty to your presence. Around your neck hangs the lei niho palawa. This is a hook-shaped pendant carved from the tooth of a sperm whale. The ivory is polished until it glows like moonlight. It hangs from a thick bundle of braided human hair. The hair comes from your ancestors, or perhaps from high-ranking enemies killed in battle. By wearing their hair, you are literally carrying their mana. You are surrounded by the spirits of the past. You carry a kahili, a feathered standard. It looks like a giant feather duster on a long pole. The feathers were arranged in cylinders of black, white, red, and yellow. It is carried behind you by a special attendant. It marks your location. Even from a distance, people know. The chief is here. Your days are filled with specialized attendants. There is a kahu who guards your spittoon, because anything that comes from your body hair, nails, saliva contains your mana. If an enemy got hold of it, they could use sorcery against you. So everything must be hidden, buried, or thrown into the sea. There is a kahu who massages your back, a kahu who waves the fly whisk, a kahu who announces your words. You never speak directly to a commoner. Your words are too heavy. You speak to your spokesman, and he relays the message. But do not mistake this luxury for idleness. You are a warrior. Every day you train. You practice with the pololu, the long spear made of heavy kawela wood. It is 15 feet long, smooth and deadly. You learn to wield it in formation. You practice dodging spears. A high chief must be able to stand in an open field while warriors throw spears at him. He must catch them, deflect them, or dodge them. It is a test of courage and reflexes. You learn to surf, hianalu, waves sliding. Surfing was the sport of kings. The chiefs had their own breaks where commoners were forbidden to surf. They rode boards made of koa wood, 18 feet long and weighing 150 pounds. To paddle such a board required immense strength. To stand on it required grace. Imagine the chief, the alii, standing on a giant wooden board, riding a 20-foot wave at wake egg. He is not just having fun. He is demonstrating his mastery over the ocean. He is commanding the waves. Your life is a performance. You must always be strong. You must always be dignified. You must always be poneritis. But the pressure is immense. You are the linchpin of the universe. If you fail to perform the rituals, the world suffers. There are 4 major kapu periods in every month. Times of prayer and restriction. During these times, work stops. Noise is forbidden. The temple drums beat in the night. You must go to the heiau. The heiau is the temple, a platform of dark lava rock open to the sky. Wooden images of the gods stand guard, Ku the snatcher of islands, Lono the god of rain, Kane the creator, Kanaloa the god of the ocean. You stand there with the priests. You offer the sacrifice. Sometimes it is a pig, sometimes it is fish, and sometimes, in times of war or crisis, it is a man, a lawbreaker, a prisoner of war. It is a grim duty, but in the ancient mind, it is necessary, a life for the life of the land. The seasons turn. The Makahiki season arrives. The Pleiades rise in the east. The god, Lono, returns. War stops. The heavy restrictions are lifted. It is a time of games and feasting. You travel around the island, collecting tribute from the people. You see the bounty of the land, the pigs, the taro, the feathered capes, the wooden bowls. It is a confirmation that your rule has been good. The land is fertile. The people are fed. But deep down, you know that this system is fragile. It relies on belief. It relies on everyone agreeing that the kapu is real. For 1,000 years, no one questioned it. It was as solid as the mountains. And then, in 1819, the silence broke. Kamehameha, the great king, died. His son, Laholaho, took the throne. But he was young, and the world was changing. Ships were arriving from America and Europe. These foreigners did not follow the kapu. They ate what they wanted. Men and women ate together, and nothing happened to them. The gods did not strike them down. The women of the court, the powerful queens, Kahumanu and Kipralani, saw this. They had always chafed under the restrictions. Why could they not eat pork? Why could they not eat with their husbands and sons? They pressured the young king, and one day, at a feast in Kalua Kona, Laholiho made a choice that shattered the world. He walked over to the women's table. He sat down, and he began to eat. A collective gasp went through the crowd. The Alai watched in horror. The commoners covered their eyes, waiting for the lightning to strike, waiting for the earth to open. But the sun kept shining, the wind kept blowing, the waves kept crashing. Nothing happened. In that moment, the spell was broken. The manna of the gods had failed. The cry went out. The kapu is broken. The gods are dead. It was a revolution, not with guns, but with a meal. In the days that followed, the order was given: destroy the temples, burn the wooden idols. The people tore down the sacred walls. They set fire to the fierce faces of Kul. The smoke of the burning guards drifted over the islands. It was a moment of profound psychological shock. A society that had been organized around strict religious laws for a millennium suddenly had ... nothing. The void was terrifying. And into this void, mere months later, sailed a ship from Boston, the Thaddeus, carrying Christian missionaries. They brought a new God, a new book, a new set of rules. The Hawaiians, adrift in a spiritual vacuum, accepted the new faith. The world of the alii, the sacred chiefs, the living gods began to fade. They traded their feather cloaks for Western suits. They built palaces with Victorian furniture. They learned to read the Bible instead of the chants. They remained kings and queens for a while longer, but the magic was gone. They were no longer divine vessels of energy. They were just rulers navigating a treacherous geopolitical game against the rising powers of the West. By the end of the century, the kingdom was gone, overthrown, annexed. The feather cloaks were packed into boxes and sent to museums. The heiau became ruins, overgrown with vines. But if you go to the islands today, you can still feel the echo of that time. Stand on the dark lava rocks of the Kona coast. Look out at the vast, empty ocean. Imagine the drums beating in the night. Imagine the flash of yellow feathers in the sun. Imagine the silence of 1,000 people bowing in the dust as a shadow passes. The alai are gone, but the land remembers. As we reach the end of our journey tonight, let us take a moment to look back at the path we have traveled. We started in the cool, wet mud of the taro patch. We stood with the commoner, the muka Yunana, feeling the weight of the sun and the comfort of the routine. We learned that life was hard, but it was also full of meaning. Every stone, every plant, every drop of water was a relative. We looked up at the comet streaking across the sky and witnessed the birth of Kamehameha. We followed him from a cave in the valley to the throne of the kingdom. We saw the loneliness of power and the tragedy of a man who conquered the islands but could not stop the tide of change. We wandered into the twilight world of the Menehune. We touched the stones of the fish pond wall, built by hands that history has forgotten. We wondered about the little people of the forest, the builders who worked in the dark, reminding us that there are still mysteries in this world that cannot be explained. And finally, we walked in the shadow of the sacred chiefs. We felt the terrifying weight of mana. We saw the beauty of the feather cloaks and the brutality of the kapu. We witnessed the moment when a single meal brought 1,000 years of tradition crashing down. These stories remind us that human history is fragile. Civilizations rise and fall like the tides. Beliefs that seem unshakable can vanish in a single afternoon. But beneath the drama of kings and gods, the rhythm of the island remains. The rain still falls on the mountains. The streams still flow to the sea. The trade winds still rustle the palm trees. The land endures. Tonight, as you lie in the dark, miles away from the Pacific, Let these images drift through your mind. Picture the green valleys shrouded in mist. Picture the black volcanic cliffs standing against the white foam of the waves. Picture the night sky filled with stars that have guided voyagers for millennia. You are safe. You are warm. You are part of the same human story. Let your breathing slow down. Match it to the rhythm of the ocean. In and out. In, ... and out. The work is done. The history is written. The islands are sleeping. And now, it is time for you to sleep as well. If you enjoyed tonight's journey through the history of Hawaii, please consider subscribing to our little community. And let me know in the comments where you would like to travel next. Whether it is the sands of ancient Egypt, the castles of Japan, or the libraries of Baghdad, I am always ready to explore new stories with you. But for now, there are no more dates to remember. There are no more names to learn. There is only the quiet. Sleep well.